Welcome to another episode of Real Agency, and we've got a luxury guest today, Melanie Attwater. Thank you for coming to see us at the studio today.
Thank you, pleasure.
Um, let's talk. Before we could dive into the luxury space, I know that's where you sit these days in
hmm
agency. Can we take you back to the beginning and what made you get into
Sure.
agency?
Okay, well, first of all, just before I got into agency, I sort of spent my career having studied Spanish and business. I worked for various global organizations. So with my Spanish, I used that. So I worked in the city, what have you. And alongside that, in parallel, I started doing renovations on properties. And I renovated 5 Victorian homes and absolutely loved it. Um, And I always thought I really want to find what I love, and I wasn't sure what that was going to be. Um, I moved to Portugal, and then I came back to the UK to have my son, who's now 12. And I kind of almost fell into high street agency just because it was an opportunity and loved it. I love the people aspects and properties, really passionate with the renovation and all that kind of thing. I love architecture, interior design. So I thought I finally found my niche, what I really love. And so I was working for a high street agent locally who had 8 branches. And I got a bit demoralized really because there was various things happening, and I felt that the service that I was giving was being diluted because there were other people in the office that were really demotivated for various reasons. And at that point, I became aware of the self-employed model, and I approached a boutique agency and joined them. And like a duck to water. Now, I joined them as a single mum, aware that there was no security of getting a salary, but I was certain I'd be able to do it. I had the confidence because of, the service that I cared about my clients and the relationship I got with my clients with my high street agency, that I was confident that I'd be okay.
So you had
And
that belief and the mindset from
yeah,
day one.
I'm a driven person. I always have been, and I'm a grafter, and I think that's really important. I think that's one thing that keeps coming up with Roger Black and Steve Backley, and even last night I was at an event in Mayfair with a an F1 driver, and he said his success was down to graft and resilience, and those two words come up. And I had the graft, and I think I'm quite a resilient person. And then really, I went to another self-employed model. And then I thought, I'm going to go out on my own. I don't need this other agency. And at that point, I actually was asked to speak to Roger and Steve to talk about the rewards and challenges of being a self-employed agent. And I didn't know that they were with EXP, any relationship. And I quite happy talking. So I said, yeah, I'll straightforward and I'll say it how it is. And we got talking, and they mentioned EXP, and they talked about the global side of things. I didn't know much about EXP, but I thought this sounds like this is interesting, and just through conversations. And so I joined EXP a year and a half ago, and I feel like I found my family. I really do. The events are off the wall, the speakers. And I think for me, it's culture as well. So, for example, when I went to the conference in Miami last year, and I'm really looking forward to the one this year, what really hit home to me is, and especially because you think with the US that it's very money driven, all that Americans talk about is dollars, dollars, dollars. And yet the speaks that they had at the conference, it was about helping families.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about making loads of money, which that's kind of what you get out of it, as well as the relationships. And what I love about what I do, what I really love, is the relationships I build with people, and to feel, I call myself a helper,
Yeah.
you know, and I find that I'm in the right place. They say you surround yourself with the best people, and I just feel, going back to, really wanted to find my niche. I found my niche in terms of being an estate agent, helping people move home. So you've got the homes and you've got the property, you've got the properties and the people. But now I'm in an organization that I feel I'm just in my family.
So you're on your own, but you've got the support.
Incredible. It's the best of both worlds.
Mm.
I've got the independence where I can drop my kid off to school in the morning. I can pick him up from school. I'm in control. If I want to go to Portugal for 2 weeks, I don't have to ask the leave, you know? And I can't imagine working for somebody else again. And financially, no brainer.
Yeah, we'll
I
come
mean,
to
yeah.
as a reason success and contact in a bit. But so yeah, you mentioned Miami, and we spent a lot of time in Miami. We both recently joined EXP.
Mhm.
We're not hiding behind that, but and you were one of the first EXP luxury agents in the UK. So what was that the main reason for joining EXP because EXP luxury had been launched?
No, I mean, I was working for a brand before that was a luxury brand, and how I got into that was just it was a natural progression. So because I really wanted to give the best service, because I really wanted to do the best marketing, because I did the videos, because I put myself out there on social media, I naturally not fell into luxury, but I guess the service level that I was giving led to that. And my first luxury property, I mean, I'm actually meeting the lady this evening, even though she now lives in Spain, funnily enough. So I was doing a viewing at a flat in Caterham, beautiful modern flat. And I was talking to this couple, and whereas it was just a two-bed flat, so it should have taken 15 minutes, but we were talking, and after an hour, um, they'd said that their house was on the market. And in fact, the same thing happened just the other day. They actually said, well, actually, we haven't signed the papers yet. Do you want to come and see our house? And that was 1.25 million. And I was like, I'd be delighted to come and see your house. Went to see their house. They went, we're signing with you. Because I'd spent that time talking to them, and I guess the authentic, genuine, they could see my passion and that I cared, and I built a relationship with them. So they wanted me to sell their house. And then it's almost like a snowball effect. You get one luxury home, and then you'll get known to be, and also because you're meeting buyers, oh, would you consider coming to see our house? And it's just an evolution, so it just happens naturally. Obviously you can go out and prospect, but that was a really lovely way of me naturally building that business.
So most of your business comes from meeting buyers, seller referrals.
Uh, all of my business is referrals now, is recommendation from other clients. Yes, I built a brand locally. And so in fact, some people call me and go, oh, we haven't really got luxury property, but can you help us? I'm like, yes, of course, I'm here to help people. So yeah, luckily
But
I can pinch myself that the business comes to me, but I'm always actively
but
looking.
I think you make your own luck as well because you're getting in the right rooms, and you mentioned like dropping your 12-year-old to school,
Hmm.
and there's some bad press out there, self-employed partner agents, shouting about work-life balance, all that, and it's not all about that. But last night you was at an event in London, so you're sacrificing time where you could be with your son.
Yes.
Put yourself out there to get
But it was a
right.
great event. I was having fun. It's great to
That
have.
is work as well.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
meeting potential
It's
clients.
working hard,
Yeah,
but it does mean that I can go to Portugal or wherever I want to go every school holiday. I don't have to ask for time off, and I can work in Portugal. I can do virtual valuations, and we'll come on
yeah.
to that maybe later. There's a lot of things I can do. Client contact, I can be on the phone, I can do all kinds of things remotely. So I think I can have that work, and I go to the gym and that kind of thing, which if I had to be in an office, 9 to 5, forget it.
And do you think the perception, from the outside looking at probably EXP and EXP luxury, I'd be interested to know your thoughts that, when I'm speaking to agents, agency owners or independent on their own agents thinking of going self-employed, they're completely shocked there is no territory and they can't believe that. Like I was with you earlier and we was having lunch and you mentioned the lady who sold a house in the UK has just asked you to sell their house in Spain.
Yes,
Um, you're allowed to do that. Like if you
absolutely.
go somewhere near,
It's your business.
yeah. So there's no territories. But I was with a business owner the other day and he was like, "What do you mean there's no?" I said, "No, you can go to the next county if you want."
And my view on that is that it's almost like having a virtual office. We've got a network of agents, and I believe in collaboration.
Mm.
So rather than seeing that you're competing with somebody, actually it makes our team bigger.
Yeah.
Our presence locally is bigger. And I just think that collaboration, and if you've got that positive mindset, then an agent locally might have a seller who's looking to buy or downsize, upsize, and you might have a property. So it's about working together.
Yeah, and it's nice to be part of a bigger company, but running your own company. That's what
It's
I
the best of both worlds, and I absolutely love the community that we've got,
it's
and the fact that it's global, and you've met people,
yeah.
and they're so supportive. And again, surround yourself with the best. Surround yourself where you're inspired, and I am inspired constantly. I really
You know,
am.
there's new people. Like I went to an event last week and got chatted to another agent in the the company, and we've become friends since that.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time together in Miami, along with the other 12 so people there, and you build those relationships and meet
You're not isolated
you
at
meet
all.
new people all the time. Like, and it's it's nice that you are there. And like Jane did a lovely post recently, didn't she, on LinkedIn about the community. I think for outsiders looking at it, they probably don't realise what I didn't realise what being part of a bigger thing felt like. I've been
Mm.
part of network before, but I was nowhere near.
And I think that's the network. It is a community.
Yeah.
So, for example, we've got our kind of in-house Facebook. We've got the coffee chat thing, and people can ask questions. You are not alone. And bearing in mind how many agents there are worldwide, it's wonderful to have
Mm.
that. It's very
Well,
special, actually.
it's a sharing mindset, isn't it? It's like and actually, I had someone contact me on LinkedIn recently, and it really got me thinking. Because I'm connecting with new people all the time, like, starting conversations, and this chap went back. I would be interested to, we've run a little Facebook group with Real Agency, and I invited him to join it. He said that's really good, like sharing. He said, "Is there anyone from my local area in it?" I said, "I don't know." Like, and he was like, "Well, I wouldn't want to be sharing ideas in front of my competition." I thought
Wow.
that is a typical
Yeah.
mindset of that an estate
Negative.
agent. Is that keep it
Yeah.
to myself. I wouldn't want to share my ideas, and I think that's that's a dangerous game to be played in this fast moving world, because you're not going to be listening to other people's if you're not willing to keep.
Let's
You're
all
not
be
gonna,
better.
yeah, it's all
I mean,
raise the
the
bar.
whole industry needs elevating.
Mm.
And so let's all give better
Yeah.
service, do better marketing. We
That's
can
what we're doing now.
all,
We're trying to
yeah,
give away some
yeah,
free stuff, and
yeah,
hopefully we do in this talk.
yeah, be
Oh
helpful.
God, who's filming this now? What did he
Yeah,
just say just now?
yeah.
He said, "Yeah,
Changing the industry.
change one podcast at a time." Todd, that's what you said,
Yeah.
didn't you?
But it
Uh,
is. I mean, the industry really does need disrupting, because people say, oh, all estate agents do are take photographs and put them on Rightmove.
mm.
That is the perception. And when people, like the event last night, when people say to me, oh, what do? You almost feel that you have to go, like, excuse yourself. Like, I'm an estate agent, but, I do give a personal service. And I'd like to think, and I do think this is going to happen, and it is happening. And it's great to be part of this. We are disrupting the
Yeah.
industry. And a bit like America, that's self-employed, they'll graft. And, the reviews I get from my clients, and the relationship that I make, and they become friends,
Mm.
a lot of them, that's a testimony to how they feel you're on their team,
Yeah.
how you've worked hard for them, and then to get recommendation. People don't recommend you unless they had a really great experience. Otherwise, it goes right back in their face.
And it goes how, like, yes, you're in the luxury space, so the fees are higher, but if you was working for a high street luxury agent, dear as such, you'd be doing far more properties, and do far more appointments. You'd be timed. It'd be like, how long are you going to be on that valuation for? Valuation. I know
No,
you don't
yeah,
like that
yeah,
word.
I hate that word.
But,
Yeah.
but it's a completely different. You can give as much time to a client as you want.
Mm.
And
Absolutely. And like the fact I'm in control, and I'm building a relationship, and it's my relationship with them, and the relationship part of the business. You're selling someone's home,
yeah,
so for example, I've had people living in the house for 40 odd years. I'm just talking about giving little nuggets away. On completion, another word that I really don't like, such a clinical word for such an important landmark in someone's
you got
life.
another.
I mean, moving in day, it's a celebration, isn't it? And it's also moving on to a next chapter for the sellers. But I get a book made up of the photographs of the house and present it to the seller, because they're taking their memories away. And it's that kind of understanding of how important that is. And in fact, I had a client who had a beautiful arts and crafts home in Woldingham, which is really lovely in the Surrey Hills. And I gave them the book, and it must have been 3 weeks later, she called me and she said, our granddaughter noticed that the photograph of the room, her bedroom with the rocking horse, was not in the book, just because there were so many photographs of this house.
Oh,
It's
what
so
you
big.
had?
And so I got the book made again with the photograph of and it just shows that it's important for people. And it's that understanding of, For me, it's a real privilege to sell someone's home, be part of,
And I've
you
not
know,
seen what you do there, and I think that's like, if anyone's listened to this, that's the one key takeaway for me. I need to start doing that. Um, is it branded or is it just about the home?
just about the home.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah,
It's about them, not me.
yeah,
It's their home, and I do put a page and say, "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to sell your home." Because I do appreciate that. I really do. I pinch myself
mhm,
that I get to do what I love doing. Honestly,
yeah.
it's amazing.
And it's not always, is it? You know, you've had a difficult situation recently. So do you mind talking about that?
No,
Yeah.
no.
So you're lucky enough to sell a home for over £2 million.
Yes.
Um, Not every seller relationship goes to plan, does it?
Yeah, this is the first time I've had, I suppose, a four. Well, I was just shocked, really. Basically, we got to completion, having him obviously accepted the offer and exchanged, and we sent through our invoice, and he said he didn't want to pay the fee, even though all along, even up to that, he said he wanted me to sell other properties for him.
Mm.
And he was clearly a chancer. Clearly he'd screwed over people
In the past.
in the past. And hindsight's a great thing, when you look back. And I think he never wanted to do things on email. He said he didn't like email, and he said he didn't like working with big companies.
So he employed a personal agent thinking it's just
Thinking he was
you.
going to screw me over. Well, yeah, I'm nice, but I'm not a mug. Anyway, so yeah, so he refused to pay. Thankfully, and again, if I was on my own, I would have had to deal with this on my own with solicitors and stuff. But EXP took a debt collector to them, and yeah, so 50K fee. Um, I've got 90% of it, and the rest is coming in. But yeah, a
And,
cracking fee.
and that protection, and yeah, that's a huge fee. And those scenarios do happen from time to time.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
never happened in my life, but thankfully it happened when I was with EXP,
and I,
and they took it on for
I,
me.
and I've had it. And another XP agent, I won't name him now, but he phoned me the other day. I've been speaking to him a lot recently. I was like, Adam, you never guess this? He'd sold a house for £2 million, or he had it on the market a
Hmm.
year ago,
Yeah,
and it turns out one of the viewers went direct and done a dodgy.
it happens. Yeah,
And he's like, the fee's like
yeah,
humongous. Like,
yes,
and the XP just phoned me saying, we've just found out that yeah,
yeah,
this happened,
yeah.
so we're going to go after the seller.
Exactly.
And he's like, if you was running your own agent like myself, that could have happened to me loads of times. I'm not
Exactly.
going through
Yeah.
land registry check. I have found a few scenarios over the years, but it's a nightmare for a small,
Yeah. Because you
independent
don't want to be
agent.
spending your time on a negative thing. You want to be building business and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I was very impressed. It's really
Yeah,
nice to have that support.
and there are some like people I know who wouldn't let that go. For me in my business world, I was always listing majority of the stock coming on the market. So when those situations arose, I weighed up the time I was going to spend, like dealing with a solicitor,
Yeah.
phoning a debt collection agency,
Yeah.
deal
Who wants to
weighing up
do that? Yeah.
maybe not do evaluations and winning business. I was like, well, you
Yeah.
lose 9 grand, I'll try and
Yeah.
get 9 grand back.
Absolutely.
And so, by having an XP, just be like, right, we'll do it.
Amazing.
That was a big factor for me moving over actually. When Adam sat down and said to me, these are, list the things you like about running a business
Right.
in the industry that you don't.
Yeah.
That was one of the things. I said, it doesn't happen a lot, but I don't like the idea of having to deal with that
Yeah.
confrontation. But, and he was like, well, we would always do that.
Yeah. I know. I mean, yeah. I've never had it before, but thank God I was where I am now.
Yeah. Well, so that's what, yeah. So, um, going on to little secret nuggets and gold nuggets, you were lucky enough to give me this beautiful book where you wrote a chapter. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so I know a lady who part of a really great network, and a lady was writing quite a few series of books, and she asked if anybody wanted to put in a chapter, and this one was about motivation. And if I just take, so it was about what motivates me, and I said um, that motivation comes naturally when you have a clear and strong sense of purpose, because I am very driven, and a lot of that comes from, and it comes back to really the disruptor part of the conversation, in that when I go to see a client, not evaluation, because evaluation is just a very small part, I go in and go, why am I here? Because unless I understand what their problem is and their timescales and what's going through their heads and what their concerns are, then I can't help them. So it's not right. I can sell your house, and we all know that everybody says, "Oh yes, my house will sell immediately," um, and then their problem isn't selling the house. They know that you and multiple of other agents could sell the house. So what makes me different? And I go and I talk about where they're going to. Can I help them where they're going to? Or, they might even be going abroad or what have you. And I can help them find. Not only can I help them find, I can negotiate on their behalf, and just talk. If someone hasn't moved in 40 years, it is quite daunting, or even in 20 years, and it's a big thing. And they might have been thinking about it for a year. So what's pressing them? What's the timescales? That kind of thing. So for me, the motivator is to help people.
Yeah.
And I find it a real privilege that people trust me. And the relationship that I build with clients, other than the nutcase that I had recently, usually, I go and I still, a year down the line, I go and see them. And in fact, I did 14 viewings a week last Saturday for one property.
Lovely.
Now, bearing in mind, because I've rung on behalf of clients before to see if I can view a property on their behalf, and I've been told by the estate agent, "Oh no, we haven't got any available." I would never turn down a viewing because that might be the person who's going to pay a premium price for that property. And so, all of those things, I can hold my hand up and go, "I've done everything I can for my client," and I do believe, and this is one thing I say to my 12-year-old: treat other people like you want to be treated. Or even treat other people like you treat your mum. And I remember the solicitor that I recommend now, I recommend him because years and years and years ago, he was in a chain. He wasn't the solicitor for my part of the chain, but he was the solicitor for somewhere further down the chain. And the solicitor at the bottom had sent the funds on completion day to a dormant account. So everybody, it was 5 people in the chain, 5 families. And the other solicitor, "Oh, well, no one can move." I'm like, no, 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 no. They're sitting in removal vans. They have to move. This is
Well, bang
family.
it on, yeah.
And this one solicitor said, "Right, we will take an undertaking that money will be in an account tomorrow. As long as everybody agrees with this, everybody can move." That's why I recommend him, because he made a difference on the day when he needed. And it's about caring for people, and so where does my success come from? Why am I motivated? Because I want to deliver a service. We shouldn't be in an industry where all people do is take photographs, put on Rightmove. That's not the service that I want if I'm selling my house. So comes back to graft, it comes to resilience. I make myself available 7 days a week, but it does mean I can go to the gym in the morning because I know my clients are going to be in meetings in the morning because they're professionals. So I make myself available when my client base is available.
And do you have like a maximum number of clients you work with at any one time, or
Yeah, I mean,
does it vary?
it varies a little bit, because obviously I want to give that service.
Mm.
And that kind of just maybe leads me on to where I see myself in a few years' time. I want to be able to have a really good team, all delivering the service
Well, I
that
know
we
you're,
do.
obviously you're bringing sponsored agents in, mentoring agents within EXP, and as I am, and we've sat on calls together, meetings together, bringing agents in, and it's clear you get you're passionate about helping those agents. We were talking about, you know, going through advice meetings,
Yes,
meetings earlier, and some great agents still were not doing things that
yeah,
maybe what we was find natural.
exactly. Yeah,
And
and I think we can all learn from each other.
yeah,
And I'm a big believer in listening to podcasts and constantly learning AI. I'm embracing AI and trying to
we'll be
kind
looking
of
at a few bits today, won't we?
yeah, absolutely. And it's so powerful. It's amazing. And I think, and that's another thing about being part of a great community, because and the speakers at the events, you're constantly learning. But interestingly, just going back to, there's a bit of a backlash at the moment about sort of EXP and the self-employed model. And I think really, and that's from people who don't really understand what people experience like myself. But, if you are thinking about going down the self-employed route, then find a sponsor that you've got a great relationship with and you trust them.
It can make a difference.
Yeah, and it's really lovely because I've got a lady who I'm a sponsor for, and I said, "Look, I'm here to support you." In fact, I booked a photo shoot to do branding with one of my ladies that's come on board, help them get business cards set up. But I said, in fact, what's that? If I look on my phone, um, one of the ladies that came on board, another Melanie Yules, is a fantastic agent. She said, just wanted to say a big thank you for always being there when I've had questions or needed a bit of guidance. It honestly means so much. Knowing I've got your support gives me real confidence, and seeing everything you've achieved is seriously motivating. Your success pushes me to keep leveling up and reminds me what's possible when you stay focused and driven. I really appreciate you being in my corner. I mean, that's really emotional for me to read because,
I'll see that, yeah.
like how lovely, I always
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
pinch myself that this is happening to
And I
me.
can see that, yeah, it's an emotional, reading stuff like that, and I've had moments like that, and, it's lovely, it's lovely
It
helping
means a
out
lot
because
to
you
me,
you feel like you're building like a tribe
and it's a good,
yeah,
it's
like
a,
and
it's a
I was
good
on a
thing.
call this morning with a few, agents and, someone who's absolutely smashing it, in more of a high volume sort of space, which
Mm.
I've never been in, and he shared and there's loads of people on the call, and he shared a golden bit of nugget about how to get your fees up, and I'd never heard it before. And there's loads of different things you hear out there, but he was saying, and Craig, if you're watching this, I could see people's ears pick up when he mentioned it, and it was like, great. When he decided to take his fees from 1% to 1.25%, he looked at it and thought, I've got to justify that. So how am I going to justify that? So he just said, look, our fees are 1.25%. We do all the viewings.
Mhm.
But if you want to pay 1%, we can't do the viewings for you. So he made it very simple. Like, y no one wants to do the viewings. So therefore, 90% of people went with the 1.25.
I mean, so I say, one of my little sayings is the critical skills of an expert estate agent. I love you've got Royston Guest's book
Yep.
on the back there, and one of the things that he said and I use is that everything that I do is deliberate and conscious. So I choose those words very deliberately. So the expert skills for me are marketing, and I could talk about marketing and the things that I rant about in the industry, in terms of the lack of care and the photography, no videos, even on £10 million houses, is insane. So marketing, negotiation, and communication. And, in terms of negotiation skills, if you can't negotiate a good fee, how are you going to negotiate a good sell price for your seller? And why would you be the same price as somebody who's not doing the viewings? If you're being available, if you're doing the best marketing, if you are a skilled negotiator, and if you're a clear communicator, if you've got a great skill set and you're delivering a great service, why would you be the same price, as somebody else? That doesn't make any sense. You don't expect us to go to, you know, Waitrose and pay the same prices as Lidl, or what have you. So it's almost that reassuringly expensive. But I charge 2% plus VAT,
Mm.
and I've done that consistently. And I think with experience, when I know how hard I work, okay, and I'm not, there's loads of people out there that work hard. If I and I guess I could. So let me tell a story. So for example, I was doing a second viewing at a property, and round the big kitchen island, as you invariably are, and the property was 1.25 million. And you build a relationship going around, and this is why the agent should do the viewings, to negotiate to build a relationship with the buyer. The relationship with the buyer is so important, especially all the way through.
Mm.
And I always say negotiation isn't just the offer; it's negotiating throughout the process. When the survey comes back, time scales, or when a chain falls through, you've got to bring it all back on how you negotiate all of that. Anyway, so the people, it was 1.25. I got them up to 1.28. And I said, okay, let me just go and speak to the seller, because they were out for dinner with the family, because it was the guy's birthday, father's birthday. So I went out onto the drive, and I knew they'd accept 1.28. I knew they'd be super happy. So I said, okay, 1.28, is that good? They said, yeah, that'd be amazing. And I said, well, look, if I can get to that, would you be happy to come and shake hands and meet the buyer? Because that'd be really nice to
Yeah.
start the relationship, and it builds trust. And he said, yeah, of course. We're just having our dessert. I said, well, look, I'm going to call you back, so just bear with me. So I went back to the buyers, and they were like, yeah, we can go to 1.28. I said, look, if we can get to 1.285, then I think the seller will come back and you can shake hands on it. You can meet them. And that was a negotiation tactic because it made it real. And it was really lucky to meet the seller and it just bound it all together. And they were like, okay. I said, great, just let me go in the cellar again. So I went out to front dry so they couldn't hear. I said, Andy, I said, happy birthday. I just got you a trip to the Maldives. And he was like, what? I said, I've just got you another $5,000. Now, I don't think many other agents would have just gone that a little bit further. And it's a fine balance because you never want to overcook a
You
price.
don't
You
wanna
don't need to withdraw.
yeah,
You know, feel uneasy about them, offer too much. But by me always just trying to get that,
find the
know
real
where it is,
it's like the
sets my feet over and over.
and it's what like Stephen Brown says, like, industry trainer, he's would you have paid more for the house when you bought it? And most people say yes.
Yeah.
So they weren't pushed enough, were they? They weren't asked enough.
And so, that's what you're paying. So and with experience doing that time and time again, then I feel confident that what I'm charging is reflected and my clients are happy to pay. And if you look at the reviews, I've got, I've got, that, um, on that house, my client, the seller said in his review, Melanie wasn't the cheapest, but she was worth every single penny.
That's the
His words.
that's the best advert for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think I love stories like that. It's fantastic. But regarding you know the space we're in that self-employed. I don't really like the self-employed because it sounds like you're on your own.
Yeah.
And even if you are on your own, like when your own broke, you've got so much support within the company. It doesn't feel like you're self-employed. But I felt more self-employed when I launched my business 15 years ago when I was completely on my own. Like that. Yeah.
But I think that's what real agency is about.
Yeah.
It's
It's
about
collaboration.
people helping each other, supporting each other, learning best practice, AI,
Yeah.
everything. Because we can all learn. Because you can, we all kind of do the same thing. You can get into habits.
I love it. Like,
It's good to be working.
this morning I'm talking to a guy who does like high volume, 25 transactions a month at average fee £3,000. And then I'm with you doing 50 grand fees. It's just amazing. But where do you, obviously a self-employed space is about 5% of the UK estate agency at the moment, market share. We're in the middle of 2025. Where do you see that in 5 years?
Oh, it's going to be the predominant model.
You think, yeah,
100%.
you think if so what percentage would you say agencies will be running?
I'd go for 80.
Really?
Yeah, because I think people, are going to see.
You think it's been that quick, 5 years?
One, if you can take control, you can work from home, you've got more work-life balance because you don't have to ask and make a lot more money than working for somebody else. If you're somebody who believes and wants the control in relationships, if you've got that skill set to be a successful, I mean, look at the States, look at the US.
Yeah. It's interesting because like we've had different people on the podcast. That's probably the highest, Smith. But I do feel like it will get to that figure at some point, and I think there's an element of change going to happen. I think obviously the Teams model came in last year. I
They're
think
incorporating the
I
team
think
thing.
the Teams model when that starts getting going, that's when it's going to
That's
really
why I think
accelerate.
because it's the best of both worlds because you've got your own practice, like
Central,
and the Kai.
yeah. So we're like, I see it as like having that centralized hub.
Someone else sorting out all the IT,
Marketing.
right move.
You get you got a team of 20 independent agents all contributing to pay for some admin support or marketing support, centralized marketing. I think it makes sense that way. Well, so we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's how everyone else does it in the whole rest of the world. It's like it's not. And so that brings me to my last question. So what's it look like in 5 years for you? So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah, to have a team, a bit like yourself, just to have a team of like-minded agents. And I love the global aspect. I love and the fact that what obviously a great advantage of VXP is that was it 86,000 agents worldwide. It probably increased since then, but I sold a villa in Portugal, our friend's villa with a Portuguese agent. I've got a boutique hotel to sell in France with a French agent. I love the global aspect, and especially in the luxury markets, clients are global. They'll have a property in Barbados and Portugal in the UK. So it's certainly in that luxury market. Then for me, I want to develop that more
Yeah.
because I love that aspect of what I do.
Love it. Yeah. So, well, thank you for sharing some wisdom and yeah, insights, and I'm sure you'll get all the goals you want
Thank
to
you.
achieve. But thanks for coming over the chat.
Absolute pleasure.